everyone. How's it going? So my name's James Huang. I'm part of the global cloud compliance team at Salesforce. I lead our compliance initiatives as well as our automation strategy to really streamline compliance and security throughout our organization. So these are the 4 learning objectives that I'm going to be going through today. And really what I wanted to walk everyone through is kind of our approach toward compliance and automation, share some pitfalls or areas, growing pains that we went through, and go through, again, just kind of step by step how we approach the automation and compliance to enhance security. So the first one is around our global compliance posture, the alphabet soup. Then I'll walk through our common controls framework, and then using that to drive automation, drive security, how to become more proactive in terms of your security posture, and really take that maturation from an automation perspective using AI agents on top of that as well. So the first step is around the alphabet soup of compliance. What does this mean? So being a global cloud service provider, PCI is one of many things that we target. We're also adhering to SOC 2 and ISO. In Asia, we have ISMAP, IRAP in Australia, and I think for many of us, we can even see the growing trends that are coming out of Europe of this kind of hodgepodge of requirements. I think in totality, we just call it the alphabet soup of compliance of what's what to do, what are we looking at. That's the big problem that we're really trying to solve today. Without a method to tackling this compliance and security, I think we don't want people to build agents or AI just aimlessly. You'll spend a lot more time burning through money, burning through testing, where without a strategy to identify what controls you want to automate, it'll be never ending for you. So that's where I come next to the common control advantage. So this is around what we call a common controls framework. And so on the left was what I was mentioning around SOC 2, ISO, PCI, ISMAP. If you took all of these frameworks in its totality, you're looking at well over 10,000 controls. We've literally done our due diligence and gone through every single one of these standards, to name a few. You add FedRAMP, it's another like 300 or 400 NIST controls on top of that. But really at its core, the trends and domains and risks that we're trying to address aren't that different from framework to framework. So what we've done is we've taken all these trends and consolidated it into a CCF of about 350 controls based on these various domains that you see here. And by doing so, now we know what to target from an automation and agent perspective. Instead of building 10,000 agents, where if you were to take that approach, you're likely going to be duplicating a lot of the work that you do, because one team may be working on one domain and then suddenly you're onto another framework and they're working on the same domain only to realize that one's already been built and one has not. And now you have a much more targeted set of controls of about 350 that you can focus on. So it brings your approach from automation much more targeted in that sense. So now that you have your common controls framework, the question is, what do I look to automate? And really what we tried as an organization is to focus on the most manual-intensive efforts and also the areas where you have the most overlap. So in this case, we like to say that with our CCF, we have this stair-step approach. And what this means is, if you took SOC 2 and ISO, or even PCI as a baseline, and you build on top of that for every framework, what is that commonality? And in this slide, you can see that light bar, that light blue area, is the commonality that we see amongst every single framework. And that gave us an indicator that from an automation perspective, an AI agent perspective, if we built for that light blue section, we have much more efficacy and much more ability to scale in terms of impact from an automation perspective across an organization. So this is how we took that approach from a CCF to identify what to automate. And then on this next slide, we built on responsibility. So what do I mean by responsibility? From an automation perspective, centralization is key. We tried to drive a central model to the full extent of possible in terms of tooling, in terms of processes, in terms of just teams driving compliance and security initiatives. But we also recognize at the same time that's not possible for every single thing. Salesforce is big on mergers and acquisitions. We have bespoke tools here and there. So in order to drive automation, this model only works so far, only works so much. in terms of being able to automate certain inherent things like processes around HR and legal. But in cases where we didn't, our message to teams was not get with the program or we're not going to help you automate. We wanted to work with teams to understand what their requirements were. And in instances where there is uniqueness, what we tried to do and where we spent a lot of our focus early on from automation was our trusted data layer. So why is this data layer important? It goes back to that concept of that 10,000 controls. Without a trusted data layer, you may be building automation independently for every single pipeline, and that's much more strenuous in the long run, right? Because if you build independent things and things go wrong, you're going to have to look through every single pipeline to understand what went wrong, and you're going to keep testing and testing and testing. And that's not the point of automation. Automation is supposed to be a larger upfront cost. I think I'm not shy about saying that. It takes a larger upfront cost. But gradually, it should get easier and easier and easier. It should train on its own, and it should be able to do things on its own. So what we did in instances where we had 4 or 5 different vulnerability tools, we didn't build automation or AI agents with every single tool. We brought that data into a single source repository. In this instance, we call it Data Cloud, to then where we build agents on top of just this one instance. And I think that's really important from an automation and agentic AI perspective, is having that one source of truth that you just build on, because then when something goes wrong, you know directly, you only have one pipeline that is solving that to look into and investigate, instead of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 toolings. So that's our approach, right? We've established the CCF, we've established the reliance model, and now we've built this core trust layer for us to build automation and agents from. And the goal of all of that is to drive everything on this slide. We want to take, again, the most repetitive and manual aspects and streamline it in a sense. We've been very clear with automation and AI agents. The purpose of automation and AI agents is not to replace humans. That's the last thing we want to do. The one thing we want to do is to just make things easier so that we can focus on more security-related things. What I mean by this is, for those of us who have been part of assessments, or even internal assessments, how much time is spent actually just validating whether or not there's a problem, right? You take a population, then you've got to select samples, then you've got to go back and pull evidence of the samples that were selected, taking screenshots, taking timestamps. It's a very, very arduous activity. And all that time spent is not actually improving your security or compliance. What you're doing is just validating whether or not you're meeting what you dictated in your policies and standards. You're just spending time validating whether a problem actually exists. So why spend 6 months of the year figuring out whether a problem actually exists? That's where the power of automation and agents comes in. You want that to be more of a proactive approach. That's been the common word that you'll hear throughout today, is automation and agents are supposed to give you a more proactive than reactive approach. Instead of doing an internal audit for 3 months of the year, then another external audit for another 3 months of the year, what if we can enable proactive just notifications to us every time that there's a control failure, every time someone got provision access without an approval, every time unvalidated tool from a vulnerability perspective was used. And that's what we're saying is the shift left model with embedded compliance, zero-touch audits, and real-time control monitoring. And I think that, again, stems from having a trusted data layer. I think with all of our assessors today, there is a hesitancy to rely on AI. I think the more complicated you make it, the more hesitancy there is to trust it, because more things could go wrong. You don't know which pipeline is actually accurate. So again, that's where the emphasis of a strong single data plane and data layer really comes in, to build that trust. And as you continue to test and make it more effective in that sense, your auditors will get more assurance over it as well. A common term we like to say is garbage in, garbage out. If teams are so obsessed with just building automation for the sake of automation without any of this strategy, you're bringing garbage in, and the results of your automation and AI is going to be garbage out. You're not going to get any value of it. So I really stress those aspects that I mentioned everything earlier in terms of a CCF, a reliance model, centralization of your database and whatnot. Now, let's say you have automation. A lot of people ask me, what's the next step? I've done everything, I've automated. What else do you want me to do? I can run a script, I can pull everything, it's already saved 40%, 50% of my time. And that's where compliance agents comes into play. I think this is where the maturation of automation can really be taken to the next level with compliance agents. So over the next couple slides, these are examples of what I mean in terms of that maturation. So people think in the past, I think a year ago, automation would have just been like, hey, we've automated this pipeline. I can run a script, I can run something, and it automatically pull the information back to me. But where we're moving as a company, and I think as an industry, is this aspect of agents. Can we now build scalable human interactions with someone who may not even know security and compliance and really drive this forward? And here's an example of that. How do I enable, how many people at a company really know every single nitty-gritty detail that is listed in maybe all 50 to 100 policies that you have? We get that commonly from our security organizations, like, I have no idea what your policy is telling me or what I'm supposed to do. And what we've done is we've built an agent to read all of our policies and standards and essentially explain it in a 5-year-old term as if you're talking to someone who's foreign to security. So in this instance, it's, what do I do for a quarterly access review? And this will read our CCF, it'll read our policies, and provide this human interaction, well, not human, but human-like interaction, to walk through what does it mean to do a user access review. But then the agent piece will take this even further. What if you have that data layer in play that has all these interconnections? Think about what I was saying earlier. I'm spending all these screenshots, going to every system, taking who has access, what are the entitlements. Then once I deem them appropriate, I have to go back to the systems, manually remove them, take a screenshot that I removed them, and then present this to the assessor. It's a very, very arduous and manual activity. But with the right connections, what if I can start to take this to the next level and interact with the agent and say, hey, I'd like to perform my user access review over XYZ entitlements. It can pull from AWS, GCP, whatever it may be directly and provide you all the entitlements. And this is where the next step even beyond that is, can your agent start to learn trends? Can it start to pick up on things? Can it start to suggest things? Can it start to say, hey, here's all the users that you have. I noticed someone didn't log in for 6 months. I suggest that they're no longer appropriate. And this goes back to the fact that agents are here to support our day-to-day and make things easier, but they're not here to make the final decision from our perspective. What I mean by that in that instance is, let's say it suggested someone was inappropriate for 6 months, but at the end of the day, the manager was like, oh, he's just been on pat leave for 6 months, or we haven't gone back to the office for 6 months, so their access is still appropriate. We don't have that. We don't give the agent the ability to just automatically revoke access. That's not the purpose of it. Again, it's to aid us to an extent, and then once we reach that breaking point where human interaction is needed, we bring in the human to respond to that. And I think that's really the power of agents and automation, that once you spend a lot of your time building that foundation, these are the benefits that you'll start to see down the line. Again, it's not to make automation, compliance, and security completely hands-free, but it's to take the mundane, very manual tasks away so that we can actually focus on the remediation, actually fixing security bugs. Going back to the proactive, like, I don't want to spend 6 months figuring out whether or not my images are actually out of date. I want to spend 6 months actually figuring out the solution on how to patch, how to update these images if I need to, right? And that's how the automation is really going to drive, and AI agents are really going to drive enhancing security and compliance. So on this next slide, this is an example kind of just recapping what I was saying earlier, right? Automation and agents, there's endless possibilities, but at its core is that central repository. So in this instance, it's our data cloud. You then build the reasoning engine on top of it, where it's constantly improving, constantly reading. And I think the one thing that I can't emphasize enough is, again, early on testing. There's no agent or automation out there that the moment you implement it, it's going to be perfect. It's going to require constant tuning, constant improvements, constant tweaking. And I think as part of this, it's important where that data cloud, again, is enabling logging, you're enabling kind of how the reasoning agent works, giving your assessors that comfort that your agents and automation are doing what it's needed. Setting the right appropriate settings in terms of permissions as well, right? Agents can act on behalf of us, but it gets very, very tricky when that happens. So making sure that, again, you have that fine line between how much you want to be involved and how much agents can do a lot of the groundwork for you. Now, what we've also done, again, is in the sense that once you've built agents and automation, it's not something I have to trigger. What we've done at Salesforce is we've built that into our Slack, something that other organizations can do. You could build it into WebEx, build integrations. And at that point, that's where you're really, truly bringing value from a security perspective. Because now anyone in an organization can talk to your security agent and bot and seamlessly understand what is it that we're looking for from a security perspective. You get that broadcasted view from everyone to understand what is it that security drives. And I think that's where, again, the full potential of automation and agents comes out, is once you have all these integrations in place and driving all these connections, your blast radius and instilling best security practices, it gets that much easier from an organization perspective. But without the foundation and without all the early on investment, it gets really, really, really complicated and it gets really hairy very quickly. So to kind of recap where I'm concluding today is my suggestion when it comes to agents and automation is don't just build automation and agents for the sake of building automation and agents. I think that's the hottest word today is like we've done 100 commands that are automated. We've done 50 agents and done this. We, even at Salesforce, have fallen victim in some sense of just scaling agents for the purpose of scaling agents. But really, where it really comes down to is build agents and automation that provide you as an organization the most value. Take the most mundane tasks that you see from your CCF perspective, from your centralization perspective, and simplify that. Again, we're not trying to remove human interaction. We're just trying to simply enable folks to do their job better in security and focus on actual security aspects. And then from there, you'll naturally have just added benefits. You're going to have increased efficiency in terms of your go-to-market times. You'll be able to rapidly expand your certifications. You're taking a more proactive approach than reactive approach from a security perspective. Something that we're really trying to drive today from a next evolution, assuming you build your base well enough, is what if I can suddenly have agents do gap assessments for me? What if I can talk to an agent and say, hey, I already have SOC 2 and ISO. Can you go tell me what are my gaps for PCI above SOC 2 and ISO? And it can spit out all these results back to me. This is all dependent on that core and foundational layer and how you've built it. So when it comes to automation and agents, again, the biggest thing I want folks to take away is focus on the beginning. Don't focus on the outcome of just building agents and automation. Just build it with a strategy and focus on the basics of making sure you can walk before you can run. You don't want to build an engine with all these different parts from different cars of like different brands and then patch them all together and say, now we have automation. Your car, when it goes wrong, you're going to have a hard time figuring out, is this a Ford part? Is it a Mitsubishi part? Is it a Lexus part? You want to build that foundation to really set the tone for the rest. And really, your costs should go from up here down exponentially as this builds and as it learns. But again, if you don't do that, it's only going to continue to increase. You're going to spend more and more manpower trying to figure things out. And with that, that wraps up my presentation. If you guys have any questions, please feel free to find me at the networking break. Thank you.